Hi, this is Naroki5. I am going to be doing this until I die or I find something better to do. So please help me achieve this personal and, I think, noble objective by contributing to my Patreon or Subscribestar. Link is down below. Every little bit helps. Thank you very much. This is the Red Pill Nation Hangout number 311. 310 was my hangout with Zeus X, where we talked manosphere stuff. It's an interesting show tonight. There's a genuine mix of issues. As always, I am your brave and fearless host, Naroki5. With me tonight is, of course, my partner in crime, and the reason why Jaffe just left. Rierson, introduce yourself. Rierson, introduce yourself. Rierson. Oh, God, we're having one of those episodes tonight, aren't we? Okay, well, for those of you who don't know, I am... Rierson, introduce yourself.
My apologies. Last minute urge to go to the bathroom just suddenly overcame me. Anyway, I've been, well, you know, I'm Naroki's loyal sidekick. That's really kind of what it is. I'm just here along with her for the ride. It's been fun so far, and I can't wait for tonight's topic. So it's going to be lots of fun.
Yes, 311 episodes later. So those of you who don't know, I am at Patreon as Naroki5. I'm Subscribestar as the Red Pill Nation. I am available at Odyssey, BitChute, Rumble, MGTOW TV. I am at Facebook, Minds, Gab, MeWe, Getter, and that's about it at this point in time. I've had a lot of stuff going on in my life, and I haven't been as active as I would have liked to have been over the past couple of months. And it might just destabilize again here based upon some of the stuff that I was talking with Rierson about before we started the show tonight. So the topics for tonight, for Red Pill Nation number 311, topic number 1, Miller Beer, Levi's Jeans, Heckler and Koch, Target, and Ford go full woke. Topic number 2, anti-capitalist coffee shop, The Anarchist in Toronto, closing down. Topic number 3, Sports Illustrated Swimsuit Issue will feature another transgender model. And they also decided, to have Martha Stewart on. Okay. Number 4, BC Provincial Medical Board embraces globalism. 5, Indiana Jones early reviews are bad. And topic number 6, Durham report proves Clinton lied about Russia. Yeah, it's gonna be one of those particular episodes tonight. So, without any further ado, I will just simply timestamp topic number 1, and we will be off.
Here's a little known fact: women were among the very first to brew beer ever. From Mesopotamia to the Middle Ages to colonial America, women were the ones doing the brewing. Centuries later, how did the industry pay homage to the founding mothers of beer? They put us in bikinis. Wow. Look at this wild. It's time beer made it up to women. So today, Miller Lite is on a mission to clean up not just their but the whole beer industry's Miller Lite has been scouring the internet for all this shit and buying it back so that they can turn it into good shit for women brewers. Literally, good shit. How, you ask? Ladies, take it away.
First, we turn the bad shit into compost. Then we feed compost to worms. Push out beautiful fertilizer.
That good shit helps farmers grow quality hops,
Which is then donated to women brewers to make their own really good shit.
But there's definitely more shit out there. In your attic, in the garage, in your parents' basement. Send any shit you got into Miller Lite, and they'll turn that into good shit too. Oh, so here's to women, because without us, there would be no beer.
So as you've probably seen, Miller Lite did not learn anything from what Bud Light was doing, or any of these other companies. A lot's been made over the last number of months about all these companies doing very woke things that are just annoying people. Well, as you all probably saw, Miller Lite had this very woke commercial about women selling beer, how they were the ones that created it. It also dragged on Miller Lite's past of showing women in bikinis, basically going over all the stuff they did in the decades and crapping on it. Now, I'm not going to go too much into the actual commercial. I'm sure all of you have seen it a number of times and seen people talk about it, but not a lot of people have been talking about why they did that. And as you can imagine, it is not going to surprise a single person as to why. And this is the person. So just like with Bud Light, you can look at the person that's the head of marketing and see why they did this. There's not that much information out there about her, but when you see the person that's the head of marketing, you can see why they did this commercial. I didn't find much information about her, but I did see that she did make a video talking about imposter syndrome. Apparently that's something a lot of celebrities claim that they have too, which is when they know that they do not have any talent, but people are going to figure out that they don't. Which I guess if you think about it, it kind of makes sense that a lot of actors would think that way, because a lot of them really don't have any skills. They were just lucky to get a certain part or something that made them a star. But that's all for this video. I just wanted to show the person behind this commercial. It makes a lot of sense when you just backtrack and find all these things. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video.
Now, I'm going to add in before we start out, the LA Dodgers and the North Face also decided to go woke this week. So we're going to be doing more stuff. And of course, Target also chose to back down. That is also going to be for 312. But let's start out with Budweiser. Now, Budweiser, when they talk about the culture war, assuming there is a Western society left in 30 or 40 years, and it probably, well, I think I will probably, if there is a society, I'll probably still be around because I want to make it. I want to make it to 100 unless Canada completely disintegrates, in which case it won't matter that my birthday is on Canada's 100th. I was born on Canada's 100th birthday because Canada won't exist anymore. Therefore, my birthday will not really mean anything. But when they're writing up the culture war around this time, one of the things that they will be talking about, one of the big turning events, and here's the thing again, and this has been brought up. You know, it wasn't the Dylan Mulvaney Bud Light commercial really wasn't a particularly long. Oh, hi, how you? Oh, Jeffy, Captain Sinclair, introduce yourself.
Yeah, I guess you just kicked things off. From what I was hearing on the other computer, I was having some technical problems and had to have a digit confirmation code sent to me to sign in to Skype on this computer using the good captain's Skype account. So yeah, Jeffy Ryder, host of Pirate Radio Podcasts, which is the flagship, of course, to the wider WPRPN.com network. We encourage everyone to drop by, check out the website. Sign up is free. All I simply need is a username, password, and email. But got a little time on my hands here, and yeah, it's good to reconnect. Let's get the show on the road. I just got to grab a quick coffee, but I will be listening.
All right. Well, just so you know, Jeffy, I have a potential guest for you. Another one.
We just spoke to Mark. We just had him on again.
No, not Mark. Not my. Actually, I was listening to part of that yesterday.
Vancouver True Crime Podcast, Highway of Tears. Great show.
Yes, that's a really interesting thing. If we got some time at the end,
let me just to finish up. We talked about you in the pre-show. We said, "Oh yeah, we got to remember to give Naroki a shout out on air." We completely forgot to do it.
Oh, I wasn't. I didn't know. I didn't notice. I haven't gotten all the way through because I was listening in the car at work.
Oh yeah,
and all of a sudden the Bluetooth just stopped working. So
all right.
Yeah.
Well, just briefly, who's this other guest?
They are the organizers of Yeg United, the people who are fighting against turning Edmonton turning Edmonton into a 15-minute city.
Perfect. Yeah, we'd love to talk to them, of course. Yeah.
Yep, of course. They said they were interested. I can maybe hook the two of you up. I have to get a contact. I could get a contact email for them. But anyway, and just so you know, 312 is going to be very Canada heavy.
When is that? Is that now or when?
That's
is that?
Wednesday. That's next week. Wednesday.
Well, and we're going to be doing probably like a Canada Day show where we want to invite the two of you, both you and Rearson, of course, along with a few others. So, or like an open house roundtable. So
yep. So there's some very interesting stuff that happened with Trudeau and various other sources over the past couple of days. But anyway,
hang on. Was this looking on YouTube how heavily pushing the CBDCs, wanting a little public feedback, little input from the public. Like, wow, amazing! Like that they would even consider doing such a thing.
That's just the tip. That's just a 1/4 of the story.
Okay.
He did a whole bunch of other stuff this week.
Dude's got to go. He's got to go.
He's definitely got to go.
In one form or another, he's got to go.
Oh, he definitely has to go. So anyway, getting back to the actual original story here. So yeah, when they're finished discussing, they will be discussing how the incident with Bud Light and Dylan Mulvaney was kind of like almost the point where the soft power of the mainstream media was proven to be incompetent and impotent, because the mainstream media, and by the way, it was also how YouTube tried to run block from Mulvaney on YouTube, which was like the straw that broke the camel's back with me and YouTube. The whole issue with that was the fact that, I mean, if you had listened to the mainstream media, you would have been under the impression that what happened with Bud Light was just being done by a bunch of far-right white supremacist lunatics, when in fact it was getting support across the board everywhere. I mean, sales went down for Bud Light the least in Southern on the West Coast, but it still went down almost 20%, even on the West Coast. So the whole thing with what happened with Bud Light and how they had to get rid of their executives and stuff like that, you would have figured that, other execs would have seen what was going on with Bud Light, and they would have gone, maybe we should be backing away from this. Now, instead, what ended up happening is that Miller Beer came out with this nauseating feminist adware, and this is no word of a lie. They wanted to buy back all of the sexy girl women in bikini publicity posters that they had marketed over the years. Now, when they looked at the individual that was responsible for the Miller ad, and this should come as no surprise or shock to either of you two, the woman had first of all, yes, it was a woman. Yes, she had a marketing degree from a prestigious university back east, and almost the entire marketing department at Miller Beer was of the same vein, feminists. Now, all Miller Beer, and this has been pointed out to them, all Miller Beer had to do was stay quiet, and they would have had a bump up in sales of something like 10 to 15% just because of Bud Light's mistake. Instead, not only do they go out and do the same thing, they go out and do it in a way that in its own form or fashion is even worse than what Bud Light did with Dylan Mulvaney. The only thing was, though, is that they were able to hide a little bit because Dylan Mulvaney kind of like, that whole situation with Bud Light and Dylan Mulvaney kind of like dominated the headlines for a while. But now Bud Light, Coors, Molson is now finding themselves in the same boat that Bud Light is in. Now, I don't consume alcohol, so I don't consume beer, so it doesn't really affect me, but it's sort of like, at this point, like, who the hell is left? Levi's Jeans also did a transgender thing. Now, Levi's Jeans was in a somewhat safer position because they do fashion apparel and they do high-end. Hold on a second.
Did you just say that Molson is getting all woke along the lines of what Bud Light did?
Yeah, Coors owns Miller Lite, and Coors is part of Molson, right? So yeah, right. Molson, Coors, Miller.
So even though there was a clearly negative reaction on the public's part, and the bottom line, the profit margin, took a big hit, they seem to really care less. It's like, well, we're gonna double down, forge ahead, and to hell with the consequences.
Yep. Oh, and by the way, all of literally the entire marketing department at Miller, they all deleted all of their social, like not just the woman who was responsible for who was the head of marketing, but literally all of the staff of the marketing department of Miller, they all scrubbed their social media.
Okay, well that's one thing to take note of, but a question here that arises, can't help but wonder, to what extent is Castro out of Ottawa subsidizing Molson breweries, the large national beer company?
I don't know.
There's got to be some involvement. It's a ridiculous.
I do know that there's a big tie between ice hockey, the NHL in Molson. By the way, that maybe also explains why the NHL almost woke to the point where the players actually started saying no. But that's just speculation. And by the way, there are
Yeah, there were a few players who, and I think you've covered this probably a few times now to this point, but just to remind folks, in case they've missed it, that thank God there were a few players who said, "Well, I'm just not cool with this. Really, I think it's a bridge too far." And these people, I mean, a lot of the whole trans community. Let's not forget, it wasn't so long ago that these people were institutionalized, and they were required to seek therapy of a most serious kind. And if that's not a form of mental disease, this gender dysphoria, then I think that's how you pronounce it. Then I don't know what is. Where
Well, I
you
mean,
have this bizarre, this false consciousness or bizarre delusional sort of thinking, that people's their heads just aren't on straight. And if that's not seen as a problem, then something that should be treated with therapy, then clearly, it just is an example, once again, indication of how the world of psychiatrics is so politicized.
oh
Really,
yeah, well, I
and
mean,
driven by money.
I could get into the whole thing about psychiatry. About the other issue here about this is that, and this is a meme that I actually saw on Twitter. This one woman posted up this meme and says, like, have you ever noticed that these transgenders never want to go to old folks' home and read stories to them? No, it's
Yeah.
always the kids.
Yeah.
It's always
Yeah.
the kids. Like, it's not the old folks' homes.
Yeah.
It's the kids.
Well, it's like Plato talked about the Republic. Get them. I think he was in the Republic. Get them while they're young. Basically, you have to
Yep.
get them while they're young.
So yeah, this is not. This wasn't the only other. This isn't. There's like 4 or 5 others. So Levi's jeans also engaged in. Levi's jeans was a little bit safer because they make fashion apparel. So, they didn't fall under the knife, under the hammer as hard as, say, Miller did. The company that really took a hit, though, was the gun manufacturer Heckler and Koch. Again, female head of marketing basically went out and said, we're not going to engage in misogyny. We're not going to have gun bunnies anymore. And then, like, literally, when she started getting backlash, she actually, like, went out and started waving her finger at them, moralizing to them. Wait.
That's classy. That's absolutely fucking classy.
It gets better with this particular head of marketing.
Oh,
she herself used to be a bathing suit model and competitive bodybuilder.
Oh, that's the one I've seen online. Okay, all right, okay.
Yep. So, it's like, so to be fair, Heckler and Koch fixed this immediately. Like, they fixed it immediately. Like, literally, it came out. It was news for about 24 hours. Heckler and Koch I think they either like fired her, or they basically removed her, or basically took away her ability to control the marketing department or whatever. Because the next day, Heckler and Koch was like, "Yeah, well, no, we don't take a stand on social issues in this company of any kind." Like, they came out and said that literally the next day. Target also went out and decided to go full woke and full transgender. This really, it has really backfired with them. And next week, aka just yesterday, Target pulled all of their transgender storefront advertising, and they moved it into a quiet section in the back. They had an emergency meeting, which we'll be getting into for 312. They had an emergency meeting and they backed down. Ford also decided to go full woke. Now, I got to admit, I mean, the truck that they used looked very colorful and looked very flamboyant. And I mean, it's like,
stop it! Just stop it.
Yeah, it looked like it. Well, I mean, again, right? kind of like unique paint and sticker designs on trucks and vans. That's just me. But I mean, again, it was the whole rainbow flag thing. And if Ford had done this last year, I don't think they would have found themselves in the same difficulty that they're finding into. But yeah, Ford is also taking heat. Now, this particular week, you can add in the LA Dodgers, and you can add in another company who are also facing a backlash, which we will cover next week. But anyway, very, very clear. And they were saying this at the start of the year. They were saying that there was going to be a much stronger backlash against the trans agenda this year, and you're clearly seeing it here. Although some of the stuff, like say Miller's and Heckler and Koch, was more like rad femme grandstanding. In particular, the woman at Heckler and Koch was literally pulling the ladder up behind her. Because I mean, the woman who was doing the Miller beer spot was not a former bikini model competitor. The one at Heckler and Koch was. But I mean, you're seeing this with a lot of these companies. Like, you're seeing a pattern emerge here. You're seeing, for the most part, ad executives who go to generally high-end universities and get marketing degrees. And I don't know what they're doing inside of these marketing courses at university now, but I mean, whatever it is that they're teaching them is obviously not very in touch with the reality of the situation.
Well, it's full-blown Marxist, obviously. There's a hugely neo-Marxist agenda at work, and they are acting together in concert very much in the way that Alex Jones was targeted and taken down, almost overnight, and via the interwebs, every single last major platform you could imagine, he was removed from. And to say that these people are not colluding or conspiring, acting together in concert, I think clearly it's to really miss the point altogether. It couldn't be any more obvious that there is an agenda at work. And, it's really up to the public, to the people, to either allow themselves to be steamrolled and passively accept everything without saying, speaking out in opposition to or asking questions, or, basically, doing something about it, rather than having because they call it progress, right? It's a progressive, so-called liberal agenda, which is, I don't know if you'd say this term dog whistle really annoys me, because that goes over most people's heads. And it's like you need a dictionary to, translate so much, even things like gaslighting or astroturfing, terms that I really was not up to speed on just, a year or so ago, frankly. So, I wouldn't want to be speaking over people's heads using this referencing the whole dog whistle business. But if people are not clear on that, which even I'm not 100% to this point, but and trope is another one. Trope is another one that really annoys me constantly. It's like, I believe that's from the French, trop, like a too much, something that you see essentially again and again and again, or that they use again and again over and over in movies. You'll know this probably, Naroki, the way that certain archetypes are deployed or incorporated or made use of in some way or another. So, but yeah, it's obvious that there's very well. I mean, are there any beer companies that are not pushing or promoting this? So so far, who
Well,
isn't on board? What about
I don't.
Budweiser? Did you mention Budweiser?
Oh yeah, Budweiser. I don't know beer well enough. I know there is a company that is. It was the third biggest one there. They haven't done any woke advertising, and I mean, I'm happy to say they're apparently some scuttle. I can't remember what the name of the company is, but apparently right now they are just cleaning up. Right.
Oh, they're doing really well.
Well, of course, right? Because they're getting the sales now from both Miller and Bud because of what happened, right? So I again, right, I don't know alcohol and alcohol distributors all that well because I don't consume alcohol of any variety. So I
that's
couldn't
right.
I couldn't tell you. But Rearson, yeah, you've been dominating the conversation, so it's time for you to actually.
What? Oh, this last question. What percentage of the population actually in the West actually consume alcohol on a regular or semi-routine basis, and then to what extent? That's something that I'd like to become clear on, demographically, statistically, because I here in Korea, I drink on occasion, just with special outings, having dinner with friends or family, and like one or two shots of this, what is essentially fermented mouthwash, Victory Gin, out of Orwell's 1984. It really is. This
Tsingtao is the name of the company. That's just Yingling and Tsingtao are doing quite well.
That's Chinese, isn't it?
I think so. Well, I mean, there's also Constellation brands, but I mean, yeah, there's like
Tsingtao.
most like
Tsingtao is Chinese. Not that I've drank the beer, but I know that it is Chinese made. I don't know the other one that you're referring to, the other two. So
they would pursue and promote the agenda if they felt it was to their benefit. I can guarantee you. But if they can make more money and cash in by not backing this and really making a big deal, that they'll have more of a market, more people.
I mean, if I was a brewer right now, if I was a beer brewer, like I would be going to my marketing department and just telling them to shut the fuck up and just
yeah. It's what's known in economics. It's called Economics 101. Consumer sovereignty is what it's called. Consumer sovereignty. Basically, that the people dictate. So.
Okay, so Rearson, you've been really quiet, so let's hear from you.
Well, of the ones that are listed on here, Miller, I'm sure Levi's is in the same boat. I don't know about Heckler and Koch, whatever, but I fully expect Target and Ford probably have no doubt. Now, I should have taken the time to look into this. My apologies here. I've been a little bit slow, but what do you think the chances are they have some form of BlackRock in one form or another on the board of directors?
Wouldn't surprise me. Heckler and Koch backed away right away when they found out what was going on. But I mean, it's been pointed out on a couple of podcasters and so forth that I mean, all of these companies all at once doing this, like somebody had to be calling the shots. Continue, Rearson.
Well, and that basically goes with what I was just starting to kind of imply. The other thing I'm curious to know is with these marketers that have gone to Ivy League schools, because that's basically what it sounds like. Are they all part of the same fraternity, maternity, or whatever? Because they are, I'm sure, they are notorious enough of staying in communication with each other, and I wouldn't be the least bit surprised, especially with the sororities. Sorry, that's what I meant to say, sororities. I'm sure with the sororities, especially, if any female member or alumni steps out of line, the woman gets blacklisted just because how non-vindictive women can really be.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's the thing about and this is kind of getting off topic here a little bit, but in regards to True Crime Vancouver, I pointed out to the guy at True Crime Vancouver on Instagram that and this also reeks of coordination. The smile, like a lot of this, and this is what happened with when Bruce was mentioning about sororities and that sort of thing. A lot of the victims of the smiley-faced killer come from the gifted students program out of the U.S., which has rather suspicious ties to the FBI, which has conveniently refused to look at this particular case, much like how they refused to look at Ray Epps, much like how they refused to look at who's that guy who held?
Well, hang on, Ray Epps and the
Cooper.
smiley face killers. Ray Epps and the smiley. You're. Whoa.
No,
whoa.
the FBI refuses to look at the smiley.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, the FBI
yeah,
refuses to look at Ray Epps. They also refuse to look at DB Cooper, right?
DB Cooper.
Yeah, they also refuse to look at DB Cooper. So it's sort of like, well, like I suggested to the guy at True Crime Vancouver that maybe he should be checking into the education background of all these men that have been disappearing in BC to find out maybe if they have a common thread in terms of education or background or what their parents did or whatever, just like
a lot of it's a hookup scene though too. The gay grinder hookup scene has been a common thread as far as the investigative work of William Ramsey, who we've interviewed several times now, and one of the feature shows that was produced focused on the smiley faced killers. So there's angle.
Here's the thing, right? The fact that if it was a bunch of gay killings, right? I mean, and this has been going. Keep in mind the smiley face, and we're really getting off topic here. The smiley face killer has been operating before this whole LGBTQIA thing really started to take off. Like the FBI has been refusing to look at this before that was even really a thing.
Well, the FBI is hugely compromised. I think we understand that by now. It's to the point where what would they have to do to make it any more obvious? I would imagine there are some respectable people within the organization, the bureau as it is, or agency, what have you. But the hugely compromised, even from the time of J. Edgar J. Edna, Freemason, transvestite, cross-dressing, Hoover. So, the corruption and lack of real, what do they have? Fidelity, integrity, bravery, I think is are the three motto principles. Yet, that's just it rings empty words, total lip service to nothing, really.
Yeah. So anyway, that was just a really curious thing because that has been brought up. Like maybe look at the education background of these guys. I could say I only got about halfway through before the Bluetooth conked out in the car I was at yesterday.
Oh, so that's why you're bringing it up, is it? Is that why you're mentioning this?
Yeah, I mentioned it to him as well. Anyway, Steve, do you have anything? Rusin, do you have anything more to add? Because Heckler and Koch. I was glad Heckler and Koch was at least smart enough to figure out that they'd made a mistake right away. They fixed it immediately.
Mm-hmm. No, for me, the underlying pattern that I may not be able to prove anything will always come down to as well, who owns how much of stock in one form or another does BlackRock own in these companies that are going off the deep end?
They own a third of the Ukraine now, apparently, BlackRock, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah, they do. Oh, by the way,
I'm going to keep my mouth shut because it's going to be anti-Semitic. That's all I'm going to say. That's all.
Well,
I'm gonna
no, we
say.
should talk about it because I mean, you got to use
No,
a different
no,
term
no.
than anti-Semitic.
No,
What does
we're
that
not
even
gonna-
mean?
We're not
It
going to
means
talk
nothing.
about. Okay.
All right. Well,
We
from
won't
your
talk
end.
about it. Well, no, we won't talk about it because Noroki's going to get a little bit.
Well, yeah, he's
Well,
kind of
okay.
he gets sensitive. But
Do I? I mean, okay. I'm gonna have to.
Khazarian
Okay,
mafia,
we're really getting off topic here. Look, I am not naive. I am fully aware that there are AKA George Soros and a few other people, that there are bad Jews out there, right? The issue that I have with this is that, I mean, like, for instance, that one particular person who we used to have on a regular basis, you know, like, they're all in on it, and it's like, no, they're not all in on it.
who was saying this?
Well, no,
Well, they're not here anymore. They're gone.
I'd rather not mention any names, but
Do I know this person?
Yeah, you do. You were on.
I'll talk about it later. Then fine, mention the
Yeah,
name later.
but I mean, it's sort of like, he would go off on these tangents about and I kind of tolerated it for a really, really long time. But it's sort of like, yeah, okay, it's sort of like,
but I mean, we have to have open, honest conversations, and it's starting with this ridiculous term, it's anti-Semitic, which it's meaningless. It literally means nothing. It's because you have to start with the whole, well, what is a Semite? And then what does it mean to be Semitic? And what is Semitism? Let's get clear on these things. And why is it that everyone is just necessarily required to be or pro something, whatever it is?
I'm not
by default. You must be pro this or that. What are they talking about? So, and the fact is, most Semites are not even Jewish. Okay,
Yeah,
that's just a fact. So they should stop using that term. If you mean, or whoever means anti-Jewish or they hate Jews, then say it. Stop hijacking language and using it in like just, I don't know if they call it word salad necessarily, but just a ridiculous, overly politicized, and ultimately completely meaningless terms and labels that we just repeat mindlessly.
So we're really getting. Okay, it's like,
think about these things.
Well, I mean, I'm not naive. I don't like. I mean, I'm fully aware of what George Soros is like. I'm fully aware of some of the people, but it's sort of like, that inclination on the far right that
Jeffrey Epstein was like. Harvey Weinstein was like. Charles Lieber out of Harvard University has been like, and so on and so forth.
Avi Yemeni, who has willfully and put himself in danger for Rebel News. Laura Loomer, who has been basically unpersoned. Sargon of Akkad, who literally put his life on the line.
They're both Jewish, yes?
Yeah, they're all Jews. So it's sort of
hang on.
they're not all in on it.
But do they criticize Israel?
I don't know.
I don't think they do at all.
There.
No,
I don't
they're Zionists. They're political Zionists. That's all. That's enough said.
All right. I don't follow them closely enough, but I do know that, I mean, they're not all in on it.
In on what exactly? Like what cultural creations?
They're not. Look, we're really getting off topic.
Well, what is it? What, like some massive world conspiracy?
Okay.
What is it?
They're not all into the world Jewish takeover.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
No,
that's of course.
They're not all towing the line and following George Soros's lead.
Yeah, no, of course.
Right?
A lot
are,
of course.
And I don't follow these guys closely enough to know whether they criticize Israel or not, because in all honesty, I don't care. It's just that there's people who I otherwise respect. The moment you even bring up somebody who's even remotely fucking Jewish, they just go off on this fucking world takeover fucking tangent, right? And it happens.
Look. It's a powerful interest in lobby group, I guess, for lack of a better word, as is the Vatican, as is the British Crown, as is what you find in Washington, D.C. and elsewhere. And it's something we can't ignore it either. It's not, you can't just go and try to bury our heads in the sand. willful ignorance. That's not the way to handle things either. But anyways, what is it that we're supposed to be talking about right now? Going back to the original point.
We have to get back to the original point here. But yeah, it's like, yeah, I'm like, it's not that I get upset. It's just that I sort of like,
you get triggered. You get, it's hard for you to address the whole business.
They mentioned that they're Jewish, and it's automatically, oh, well, they must automatically be part of the world takeover thing. And it's sort of like, well, no. Just because they happen to be Jewish doesn't mean that they're in on this great Jewish conspiracy.
Some are, and so some are. And the question is, well, who is, what are they up to? What?
But I mean, it's sort of like, oh, well, they're Jewish, therefore they're controlled opposition.
Look at the Freemasons. Look at the Freemasons. Like, to think that they don't have, as far as steering committees, think tanks, and just the way that with cultural creation, once again, and how we find this planet being evolving, essentially, and society evolving over time. Once they call it progress. The question is, well, what is progress really? And it's a very subjective term, it would seem, and means many things to many people. So
okay, I get really annoyed when somebody, just because they happen to be Jewish, they're in on it, right? They're in on it, right? They're automatically in on it. Period. End of story, right?
There's not too many people that do that, although there are a few Nazis around and extremists like that. That's correct. But then you have extremists on the other end of the spectrum too.
Well, I mean, I don't want to start getting into too many, but you've got one guy on your Facebook feed. It's like, I see him, like, I mean, every single time you post up something related to what we're talking about, like, I mean, I know what he's talking about, right? It's like everything with him. I can't remember the name of the guy. Yeah, there's one dude in there. It's like everything seems to be a fucking.
And I put this on my timeline.
On Facebook. Yeah. Oh well, no, not you.
Or he's just a friend. He's a friend.
He's in the group, and it's sort of like a lot of time I see him posting up, it's sort of like everything seems to be the part of the big Jewish conspiracy, like all the time.
Okay, do you want to drop his name or save it for later? Is he the same guy? Is this the same guy that you were talking about earlier? Different guy?
No, different. Someone.
Okay.
Different. But anyway, yeah, we're really. Let's get back. Let's get back on topic. Okay.
Moving along.
And yeah, no, I'm not triggered, but it's like, it's sort of like, you have to take people one at a time. You have to judge them by the content of the character, not their race, not their religion, not who their grandparents were, not where they came from. You have to judge them on the content of their actual character and what they do.
Yeah, most actually Zionists, political Zionists, are not even Jewish. It's interesting to note. And many Jews, guess what, folks? They're not pro-Israel. Wow, imagine that. So what's going on there?
I don't know. Anyway, let's move on to the next topic, because this has been dragged out. This dragged out quite a bit.
That's okay.
So the next topic here. Okay, so the next topic. All right, I think I found this one particularly amusing. There is an anti-capitalist coffee shop. Undoubtedly, well, actually, it turns out that he did get the seed money to start this coffee shop up from his parents. And it was known in Toronto as the Anarchist is closing down. He was basically, I will say he was giving away the coffee for free, but he was selling the coffee at price. Here was the issue with him. He also had, well, I'd call it lefty merchandise in the store, but he was selling it at an exorbitant price to kind of compensate for the loss of his coffee. The fact that he was giving away the food and the coffee for free. Also, likely, given the environment, that knowing what the leftists are probably like, it probably wasn't necessarily the most welcoming space. Like if you looked like you might be of slightly conservative leanings, if you had a suit and tie on, I don't necessarily think you would have felt, or heaven forbid if you'd walked in there with a MAGA hat on, for instance. Like, so one of the employees might have just freaked out. But yeah, I saw some of the stuff at the website and what he was selling it for. And it's like, you know, he probably might have been able to make a go of it because obviously he was running a coffee shop. So most of his sales came from coffee, but I mean, he was basically selling it at cost. So he had to pass that loss on to the leftist merchandise, which cost an arm and a leg, instead of just simply doing what a normal person who runs a business would have done and just simply cooked the profit margin into the price of the coffee. I mean, he could have minimized it, but he didn't want to do that. So, you know, when you're doing free enterprise, when you're running your own business, you have to make sure that you're running a profit. And if you're not going to make the sales up, if you're not making a profit off your coffee, you have to make a profit off of something else. And what he was doing is that he was like charging an arm and a leg for the merchandise, and the merchandise wasn't selling because it was so expensive. Like, I'm going to try to avoid stereotypes here, but it's kind of hard not to when you're talking about this crowd. People who live in their parents' basements don't generally have $60 for a small carry-on tote bag or whatever. So the coffee shop went under. I saw a photo of what the guy looked like. I'm not surprised that it went under. Again, right? I know there's people out there that really got to stick up their ass when it comes to capitalism. And I mean, as I'm doing this podcast, I'm realizing that I'm probably going to have to get a little bit more capitalistic myself. And I'll be straight up with you. I mean, for instance, Jeremy Hembling from The Quartering, who's probably one of my personal favorite YouTubers. I mean, I find his plugging of products during his show and doing them at inconsistent times, which I think is, I mean, I still watch his stuff, but I mean, he doesn't place the commercials for the stuff that he's plugging himself in the same spot. Like, he always moves them around inside the video. So you have to actually watch the whole video in order to, like, and then you get to the part where he does the commercial and you have to skip through it. And so, you know, but I understand why he has to do that, right?
Speaking of which, Naroki, you need a sponsor. It'd be great if you had a sponsor for your show. You know, I think you could do that.
We do have Orange Man Bad Handball.
But hang on. No, that's just a farcical kind of SCTV.
Oh yeah, we also have tinfoil. We have tinfoil hats or us. Those are legit.
Desperate.
Those are legit. Yeah.
But I mean, why not? And why not with your Patreon supporters? Because you put a lot of work into this, as do we, and we all with our listeners. If only 1 out of every 10 people who engage the content, we follow the numbers and we look at it and do the math, and we're thinking, gee, if we had just 1 out of every 10 people that engage our content,
not even that. Well, not even that. Even 5%. You know.
Okay. Anyways,
even
so
5% put in $1, it would make a difference, right?
All right, 1 out of 20 then. But the point is, be that guy is what we're challenging the listener. Be that guy, or for that matter, be that woman, be that fair pirate lassie, as we put it, you know, via the flagship Pirate Radio podcast, of course. So and you know, step up and engage us on that front and help to cover our basic operating expenses, because that's what we work towards each and every year. And in addition to that, really, I don't think you have things laid out this way, but half of everything that we do manage to generate that the public sends our way, we set aside to redistribute and give back to the people at the end of the year with the 10-day Operation Secret Santa, the annual, the telethon, the outreach campaign that we
So yeah,
together.
exactly. So I mean, it's
it'd be great to see you do something similar though on a multitude of fronts. So, that's all I'm saying, I guess.
Yeah,
really.
I'm like saying it's sort of like, it's like if you're going to operate like a business, and then I mean, that's something that I'm just beginning to wrap my head around, because it's sort of like,
otherwise it ends up being just a free public service, really.
It is basically essentially a free public service,
right?
And I mean, it's like it's great that this guy wanted to do this, but I mean, again, right, you still have operating expenses. And it's like, if, okay, great, the coffee was cheap. I don't know whether it was any good or not, but I mean, it's like, I mean, if you're operating a business, especially in downtown Toronto, right, like you have high overhead, and because you have high overhead, you have to charge a certain amount for your coffee. And it's like, and he was running a coffee shop, and he was selling his coffee on the cheap, and he had to make it up. So he made it up in merchandise. The only problem is that because of the nature of his business, right, he had a very limited clientele. Unless somebody actually liked the coffee and whatever would go in and buy a cup and leave or whatever. But it's like, this particular crowd that would occupy a place like the anti-capitalist, like the Anarchist in Toronto, they're not exactly noted for being particularly tolerant, right? So I mean, there's probably a lot of people who went in there and probably didn't necessarily feel all that welcome being in there in the first place.
Well, hold it, what was the vibe like exactly then?
Well, I mean, it was the guy was an avowed leftist, right? Obviously, he was an avowed leftist. So, and it was known as an anti-capitalist coffee shop. It was known as it's called the Anarchist.
Oh, I see. So anyone walking in wearing a MAGA hat, there's a good chance you'd have he'd be spitting in their whatever they ordered.
Yeah,
maybe charging them double. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, I had a guy that went to a barber who was like that.
Pig.
I had a barber who did that to me once, and I gave him a piece of my mind when I left, because he charged me double for a haircut. And it's like, yeah, dude, I'm never coming in there again. Rearson, once again, you have been dead quiet.
I've only got 10 minutes left to go here, and I got to I got to split as well too. But just to let you know, so fly out of Rearson. Come on, I want to hear more from you as well.
The absolute irony, folks. This is why socialism doesn't fucking work. I don't know how else to say it, except that's
But anarchy is not socialism.
Okay, fair enough. I don't know. Unfortunately for me, it'll come down to is that my association with anything that seems to be left will be socialist in some nature or another.
Anarchy, just no rulers, no masters, no rulers.
Not so much no rulers. I think it can be along the lines of just limited structure. I think that's
yes. I mean, libertarianism at the extreme, I guess, ends up, it's kind of an anarchistic end where you find yourself, right? Where I wonder, then it's like, well, what are we doing about defense? It's like, look at, some foreign invader looking, it's like, oh, they're pretty free and open. I wonder how their defense is holding up. You know what I mean?
Well, here in Canada, I have to worry about the enemy in the gates right now, which is Trudeau, because he got in twice with China's help, but we'll leave that alone for next week. This one, this whole thing is just it's given Toronto a bit of a black eye. Not much, but it's enough just to kind of snicker. Because, I mean, Norky and I living in the West, I'm laughing at this story, because it's like, how how could you think that your business would be successful, one, running on the premise of, anti-capitalism? Well, I'm sorry, if you're going to be anti-capitalist, that's fine. Go right ahead. If that's what makes you feel sleep, if that makes you sleep better at night. But at some point, and yes, as Naroki fully acknowledged, he was offsetting the cost by selling other things that were exorbitantly expensive, relatively speaking. You can't do that. Or, sorry, let me rephrase that. The likelihood that I believe that you'll be successful is highly unlikely. And I guess the only way that I can say that is that with some form, in one form or another, not necessarily a leftist ideology, but rather an anti-capitalist ideology, will make your business probably not work. At the end of the day, you have to take into account what the average cost will be for your, medium cup of coffee. How much is your overhead for the rent? How much is your supplies costing? And all of those factors that go along with it. And then you have to compare it to what's being charged within the neighborhood to get an idea. And I could go into business if I really wanted to, because I know that I have the intelligence to do it. I just don't have the actual drive for it. It's not my thing. And this is no different than Naroki. We did talk about that other pink cafe way back when.
Oh, the one in Australia, yeah.
Yeah, same basic premise. The same basic premise. Not so much that his was pay for what you can afford. Well, it is a good idea. I'm not disagreeing with that. The financial reality, though, is another matter when it comes to your business. Whereas that pink pussy cafe, whatever the hell it was, men that come in here are going to charge more. We're going to charge you double for men. Sorry. Why would I want to get gouged? Or better yet, no doubt, I'm sure at least one of those women working there probably loves the idea of just pegging a man. I'll leave that alone. Ugh. But, peg him either with his pants down, bent over, or, screw him through the wallet. So, as I said, I don't really see that much of a difference in socioeconomic philosophies to the ultimate outcome of the business failing. And shit. I was doing a course through Coursera for data analytics with Google, and oh my God, it was indoctrinating. It really was. But they were talking about a feminist coffee shop, and I'm just thinking to myself, I'm really starting to lose interest in this program right now. Everything was okay. Well, pushing the limit for me, but that's just what pushed me over the edge. But I think that these social experiments can only really work with a coffee shop, especially being a small one, because the overall impact isn't as not damaging. It's certainly much more. It's easier to keep it limited to the impact on society. Whenever I get back to the Toronto area, at some point, I think I'd like to actually go to Antlers, because we talked about that restaurant as well too. And that was the chef that carved carcass of an elk, I think it was, on a table that was protected. The animal rights lovers out there, they just lost their fucking mind on it. And it was absolutely bloody hilarious. But yeah, whatever. I hope that this will be an example to anyone else that has this. I can't fault them for their ideology, but I'm hoping that this will be an eye-opener for someone who's going to consider doing this with the same with a similar attitude or a similar feeling or belief system. I wish you luck. I really do wish you luck. Don't think it's going to work because you're going to have to recoup your losses somewhere, somehow. But whatever. So that's all I got to say.
I would think sliding scale would be one possible way of approaching things if people running the show were to want to try to come up with creative solutions or anti-capitalist, a philosophy and way of doing business, I suppose, providing a product or service to the public. Think about that. You know what I mean? Sliding scale, basically pay what you have, pay what you can afford. That'd be great if the world of prostitution, that sort of thing was to catch up. I was like, oh, I've only got a couple bucks here, but I really need to spend a little quality time with someone of your caliber. So here's $5. Let's have at it. Anarchist prostitutes, sliding scale prostitution.
Only if she's into quantity, not quality. Anyway.
And we're really we're talking sliding too. If you catch my drift, we're really sliding that prostitution ring. So
she can get that much closer to the moon. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yep. Pegging that moon. Kind of.
And again, and once again, you're the Red Pill Nation Hangout. Standards? What are those?
What standards?
Yeah.
Anything goes, man.
Pretty much.
Have at it. Yeah. So, hey, look, gentlemen, it's the top of the hour here, 2 p.m. via South Korea, and I've got to head off to work, but it has been a pleasure. I'm glad we had this opportunity and that I caught you during one of, because you're working once again on occasion during this time. Are you not, Naroki, or you're in need of sleep for your
my current schedule is 4 on, 4 off. Although this particular company I might be leaving this company sooner rather than later.
Oh, it's security work too, correct?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, good stuff. Good. So, yeah, are you able to carry? You got any heat with you at all?
No. This is.
You got a taser or something? You got a taser?
No, I mean no.
You have a radio.
I have a radio. That's it.
So if somebody attacks you, you're getting beaten to death or strangled, you can radio the police.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
rather than defend yourself with a pistol or a handgun or a taser, it's like that's pretty sad. So okay, well, do you have a nightstick?
Yeah, I can get a baton. I have to go through. I have to go to get baton training to do it, and I have never really. I mean, the last job I had, I didn't need it, and in this one, it might be advisable. It depends on whether I decide to stick it out with this company, and it's looking like I might not.
The furthest that they allow you to go is to yell at somebody, say, "Hey, stop that! Stop that! Don't do that!"
Or I'll say stop again.
Yeah, exactly. Stop. You have to leave. Please, you have to vacate the premises now, or else. Or, it's like, or the bad guy asks, or what, and yeah, you'll have to ask them to leave again. So that could get pretty hairy. If is that standard kind of security, format or makeup as far as the way that.
Well, no, you're
because Trudeau, he wants to even disarm the citizens, for crying out loud. Not even able to. You can't carry mace with you as a woman, for example, in your purse. You're being attacked, mugged, raped. Like, but if you have, so you can be raped all the hell. And if you're found to have mace, or use mace, and you'll end up getting thrown in jail, and the rapist.
Oh no, they don't. They want. I'm fairly convinced now, especially. Well, again, I didn't get into this with you, Gilbo, because we covered this on a previous episode about how they threatened to nationalize the resources of the Western Canadian provinces. We have the Guilbeault, the energy minister,
Oh my
2 days
God.
ago, or last week, literally, or this, yeah, actually, no, I think it was today. He threatened the Western provinces, saying that if they didn't fall in line with the energy policies coming out of Ottawa, that he would have the premiers arrested. And this is like, I want all coal and all natural gas power shut down by 2030. And it's like,
Yeah. It's Agenda 2030.
yeah, and it's like that. It's basically all it is. All that's designed to do is just basically get. It's like, I mean, you know how big Canada is, right there. Like the grid has to be is spread out to supply everybody with power and heat, right? Power and water, right? And it's like that's just that looks to me it stinks to high heaven of them trying to force the Western provinces into corralling most of their population inside the nice new
Yeah.
15-minute
Yeah.
cities that they're trying to set up.
Right.
Which,
And
by
you know,
the way,
zero carbon or zero net carbon, these psychotic goals that have been laid out, that basically, you know, what that means is they don't want anybody breathing anymore. That's what it
Pretty
seems
much.
to me. They do not
500
ultimately. That's where
500 million people.
that's where it's going to lead. You know, and if the AI robotics, and I was talking about this today with this adult class I was working with. Just think what's going to happen when you have AI co-joined and hooking up with nanobots or nanotech and AI. And in addition, we're right on the threshold of this with all too many computers coming together, networking together, and conspiring potentially against human interest. So there are high level meetings right now. The two of you might be following this. Hopefully, some of our listeners, the audience members, are high level meetings amongst prime ministers and presidents, state leaders of the world, bringing together people, scientists, advisory committees, for input and discussions regarding the safety and concerns of AI getting out of hand, and what can be done to offset and prevent any potential, cataclysmic scenario. So, to which we've seen all too many of, foreshadowed and predicted via what Hollywood has produced now, and so many films over the past number of years. So, but on that note, yeah, WPRPN.com. Do check it out, folks. Thanks once again to Roki. Rearson, happy sailing. Good night, guys.
all right. Yep. Good night. All right. So I think we can move on. Unless you have something else to say about the anti-capital shop here, Rearson, we can move on to the next topic. Rearson?
Nothing more.
Okay. So, oh my God, the next topic.
Remind me, please.
Well, first of all, it's in the feed. But Sports Illustrated decided to go with another. Illustrated decided to go with another transgender model for the cover for the second year in a row, because apparently the kickback apparently there wasn't that much of a kickback on it last year. And it's kind of curious because I tried to find the sales figures for Sports Illustrated online. I couldn't find anything. So they took great. They obviously, I didn't do a proper search, or they're going through great pains to hide the numbers, because the one they did last year, and I commented on that one. I commented on the one last year, and it was sort of like, and we were just talking about this with the modeling, with Miller and Levi's and Heckler and Koch and Target and Ford and so on and so forth. You know, they're attempting, and it's like the first year it was sort of like, oh, okay, maybe they're just experimenting. Now they've done it 2 years in a row, right? They've had transgender models on the cover for the swimsuit issue 2 years in a row. Now, 2 years in a row. That is a conscious, like, that's not just a fluke. That's a, and of course they also had an 70-year-old, 80-year-old, or 70-year-old woman, Martha Stewart, as a Sports Illustrated model. It's sort of like, at this point, I mean, the only thing that I can conclude is what they're trying to do is they're just simply trying to normalize deviant sexuality by doing this, and they're doing it on purpose. Now, I don't know who owns Sports Illustrated. Maybe Rearson can find out for me. But
Looking into it.
The whole thing with what's going on with Sports Illustrated, it wasn't the fact that, I mean, I have got I used to like this, like there was this thing called swimwear Illustrated, and they used to have these really, really hot models that we wear swimsuits, right? And I used to like looking at those. I used to like looking at the photos in there. I mean, these women looked really nice. They looked really hot. They looked really good, right? And I mean, I wasn't. I mean, I was like, now I'd probably be care a whole lot less if there was some like uptight feminist seeing me look at these photos now, because I just wouldn't give a shit. But back then it was like, I was kind of embarrassed to be caught looking at this sort of stuff, right? But I mean, they were still women, right? Now you got to understand that hold on. Am I coming? Okay, there it is. Yeah. So I mean, what happened with you got like most of the, like, I mean, the swimsuit model they had last year and the swimsuit model they had last year looked better than most women. And unless you looked really closely, you couldn't necessarily tell that it was a woman. Now, this particular one they have this year, Kim Petras, she's not only, I mean, like, the one they had last year, you could viably, like, he still had a viable, like, girl-like look to him. Like, Kim Petras, though, is, I mean, yeah, okay, if I didn't know that she was a he, like, I would probably get confused. But I mean, she's not even a classic swimsuit model. So she's a little bit on the chunky side, which is okay, you know? But I mean, it's not just the fact that it's Kim Petras, but they also had to go and bring in Martha Stewart, who's an absolutely despicable human being, whom, by the way, got herself in trouble for posting up racially loaded comments a few years ago, but everybody just kind of conveniently forgot about that. And it's, you know, it's sort of like the whole thing with the trans agenda, right? It's like, or say what's going on with this one other singer. I can't remember her name right off the top of my head here. How, like, they keep trying to, this one obese black singer, and they keep trying to post up. I keep seeing stuff on Twitter, and on Facebook where they keep trying to force me to like this woman, or they keep trying, and they keep saying, "Oh well, look how fabulous she looks." And it's like, no, man, she looks like the type of woman that you'd have to fucking post armed guards at the fucking buffet table to make sure she didn't eat the whole goddamn. She would eat all the food on the table and then try to eat the goddamn table, right? And you're trying to pass that off as sexy. She's not. Kim Petras isn't that large, but again, it's like they keep trying to demand that men like this particular look, and they want you to like this particular look, and it's like, no, it's like like when you actually get into it, it's like, like, stop trying to, and it's like, oh, and of course they will deny, and they try to make you feel bad for like saying like, look, stop trying to shove this and try to make me like something that, oh no, we're not trying to do that. And say, well, why do you keep ramming these photos in my face then? Like, why do you keep making me look at this stuff? Why do you keep trying to tell me that this is desirable and this is sexy and this is hot when it's fucking not? I mean, in particular, this one, I can't remember. God, I think it's Lizzo. Lizzo, that's what her name is. Like, Lizzo is not a physically attractive woman, right? And same thing with this. I mean, Kim Petras actually looks better than Lizzo, except that Kim Petras is a guy. Now, and Martha Stewart, I mean, I've seen photos of Martha Stewart when she was younger. Okay, like, Martha Stewart at no point in her life, even when she was in her late teens and early 20s, I don't think Martha Stewart was ever like, wow, gorgeous at any point. Like, I mean, at her physical peak, she may have been like a 6 or a 7, maybe an 8 if she had dressed herself up right. But I mean, she was never like, wow, gorgeous. And it's like, okay, she's decent enough looking for a 70-year-old woman. But I mean, the idea with the Sports Illustrated Swimsuit Issues, you didn't have fucking 70-year-old women as models for the Sports Illustrated Swimsuit Issue. Right? And again, right, as we're seeing a lot of with, like, that seems to be the running theme tonight so far in the first half of this show. Get woke, go broke. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, Rearson.
Well, looking up a couple of things here. All right. Looking up a couple of things with all investment. Sounds like there's a bit of an echo unless you're talking. Okay, I forgot to mute yourself. Anyway. This is kind of the disturbing part, but not really. Kim Petras was the video with Sam Smith of Unholy, and that was basically what was played during the Grammys. I think it was the Grammys, recently enough. So you have to pardon me for not being terribly surprised. It's my firm belief that the people that are pushing all of this shit, which is behind the whole transgenderism thing, is all based on the depiction of Baphomet, who is a goat's head, goat's feet or legs, has kind of masculine arms, but also seems to have tits. So there is no boundary as to what that thing is. And with the Satanism, in my opinion, that's coming out in society now, that's in your face, especially with that whole thing. With Petras having been in that video and now is as you even said, my friend. Well, then there was also Ken Mitchell, but he never went out of his way to change himself or to look Canadian, 70s, 80s Canadian rocker, even 90s. But Ken Mitchell never went out of his way, as far as I know, to change himself into a woman. But now I looked into the ownership of Sports Illustrated, and they got bought by, hold on, Authentic Brands Group, or ABG LLC, and they apparently are owned by CVC Capital Partners, which is basically a Luxembourg French-based private equity firm, and won't be the least bit surprised. Sorry to get this part of it all. Just look into that. CVC Capital Partners. Shareholders. I'm probably not going to be able to find at least not very quickly here, so I'll look into this over the course of the evening, but I will be fully expecting for BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street to have about a 20 to 30, about 30%, about 25% collective ownership, which basically just means that BlackRock owns them. Please tell me that Martha Stewart's not wearing a bikini. Rookie?
I don't know. I only saw one photo of her, but I'm like,
Yeah. Ick.
I'm Googling it right now, even as we speak.
Well, as long as she keeps the clothes on, or at the very least she wears a modest one piece, which kind of keeps everything in place, keeps everything in place like it was, like even 30 years ago. Yeah, nothing.
Oh, it looks tasteful, but it's like still she's like old.
Got a pair of flabby tits, huh? Ow.
Well, when you're that old, I mean, it's like they don't, unless they're even like, I mean, that's when all that plastic surgery starts to catch up to you, right?
Oh, yeah. When she's dead and lying down, and there's still going to be jello molds, and heaven forbid you exhume her in 40, 100 years from now, what are you going to see? You're going to see the skeleton?
Into jello molds.
Well, that's exactly it.
Again, right? It's like the whole thing with this is that, I mean, again, right? It's like like 2 years in a row they've done this now, right?
Yep.
Like there's no, like, I mean, first of all, I mean, I can tell you right now, Heidi Klum's daughter, Lenny Klum,
Okay.
would make a perfect heir apparent for the swimsuit issue, because Lenny Klum is just hot AF, right? Like,
yeah.
But they won't put her on, right? It's sort of like, it's like, put a real woman on the swimsuit issue, like
biological female. Yeah, I know. Well, women are being progressively erased.
And here's the thing: feminism is not even putting up, like, they're being systematic. They're being actually being removed by men, and this is something that feminists have been bitching about for years now, and it's sort of like, and now it's actually happening, and they're doing nothing, but they're actually cooperating with them, right?
I think that's because that's probably because of, well, they don't see it. They don't see the train wreck coming. How many of these feminist groups are? Where will they be getting their funding?
From the government. The government.
Well, it could be from the government. It could be from, well, my opinion,
Corporate entities. Yeah.
Soros and
BlackRock.
the like. Yep, exactly. So, and speaking of which, you have to include BLM filing for bankruptcy or insolvency next week.
Yeah, well, like I say, I'm going to have to throw all the Canada stuff in. But anyway, yeah, like, so, I mean, I'm pretty much done with the swimsuit issue thing. You know, let's move on to...
Yeah. Yeah, so for me, with the whole thing with the swimsuit issue is, yet again, folks, biological, attractive women are not on there.
Well, I mean, I'm just going to say this, right? When I walk around...
Yep.
When I walk around the neighborhood I live in, and I live in a very trendy neighborhood in the city that I live in, right? I am seeing two types of women. I'm seeing ultra slutty now, or I'm seeing like blue-haired, bow-ring, baggy clothes wearing fucking feminists for the most part, right? Like, I'm not seeing a lot of what you'd call classically conservatively dressed women walking around as much anymore.
No, I don't expect to see that. I don't live in Kensington, but again, there was that woman that
but you're right across the river from Kensington, though, so...
Yes, I am, but there was that woman that I told you. She had her dog's tail in the pastel blue, the white, the mauve, you know, what I consider to be the pedophile flag for the transgender community. And I think she had her hair was not naturally colored either. So
enough said.
Yeah,
anyway, let's move on. Let's move on to the...
One thing I'm going to say here. But I had a feeling you were talking about Lizzo. I've had the unfortunate experience of seeing her act, and I use the term very loosely, in the fucking Mandalorian. Like, it was not a good episode, and everything about that whole season was wrong. But anyway, maybe we'll do it. We'll do something.
Well, when we get to Indiana Jones, we'll get more into that. But I mean, I am thoroughly convinced now that, I mean, like, Kathleen Kennedy is either like completely delusional, or she is doing all of this, like being this consistently stupid on purpose. Like, that's really, those are the only two possibilities. You know, because I mean, like, they've done so much damage. Like they close. Well, anyway, when we get to topic number 5, we'll get into topic. Let's get into topic number 4.
Yep.
All right. So this next topic is kind of interesting as well, because it involves the province of British Columbia. And yeah, just giving you a heads up, folks, a lot of the topics we're going to be doing over the next couple weeks it's going to be very Canada heavy. At least next week. It might be that week afterwards. But so the BC Provincial Medical Board went full authoritarian. You know, if you do not conform to their medical practices, you run the risk of losing your license if you do not administer the medications that the BC Provincial Medical Board tells you to administer, aka, right, if if for instance, like just a few months ago, like there were doctors that were potentially they weren't really risking their licenses, but they got themselves into some kind of legal trouble if they recommended hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin, but there were enough of them that did that it didn't matter. Now, if you do that in BC, you run a serious risk of losing your license to practice medicine in BC altogether. So, in effect, what's happened here is that the BC Provincial Medical Board, and for those of you who don't know what, because I get a lot of people who listen in the U.S. and you keep hearing about the Canadian system versus the American system. The Canadian system, like there isn't a quote unquote, there is and there isn't a national system in place. It's not like Great Britain. The jurisdiction for the provincial medical boards and all the doctors' licenses and that sort of thing comes from the provinces. Now, the provinces have a disproportionate amount of power compared to the states down in the US, because the provinces are the counterbalance to what is going on. Yeah, that's the reason why, and if you listen to next week's show, or when you get a chance to listen to 312, this will be explained to you. That's the reason why Trudeau, to a great extent, is able to act so authoritarian, because for all intents and purposes, and this is not so well known, most of the all of the Commonwealth countries are effectively democratic dictatorships. This includes Great Britain. Yes, there is a crown. Like, say, King Charles does actually have the legal authority to basically, he can go on paper, he can go into Australia or Canada or whatever, and he can simply have the prime minister removed on paper. It's never the only time I can remember in my lifetime where the Queen was specifically asked to intervene, or Queen Elizabeth, was actively asked to intervene in Canadian affairs, was when Prime Minister Brian Mulroney tried to institute the goods and services tax, and they managed to legally finagle it in a way that the wasn't going, that the Governor General couldn't sign it to become a law. They said they got it so that it had to go to Elizabeth herself to sign it in order for it to become a law. And Elizabeth, I understand where Elizabeth was coming from, but she should have, at the same time, she should have known better, because she knew that what Mulroney was attempting to do with the goods and services tax was not popular, but she signed the bill which allowed the GST to come in. That was like in the early 90s. Now, if you're in a Commonwealth country, though, the way it's designed is that it's a democratic dictatorship. Effectively, well, because Trudeau is in a minority government, technically he doesn't, although Jagmeet Singh seems to just want to be splooshing on that orange man bad hand balm and just willing to take it up the rear end from Justin Trudeau. Exactly. But effectively, that's part of the reason why you see Ottawa acting so arbitrarily a lot of the time. The balance of power, which in the United States is held by Congress and the Senate, in Canada, the balance of power is held by the provinces, and hence the provinces in Canada tend to have a lot more sway and a lot more power and a lot more jurisdiction over their internal affairs than, say, a state does in the US. So the BC Provincial Board can go out and they can arbitrarily make these decisions where it's sort of like, it says, okay, no, you can only administer medications from this approved list. If you stray from this list and we get a complaint about it, now, and this is basically what they're basically trying to do, they're basically trying to bully the doctors into line, which gets me to my next point about this, is that, you know, if I see this starting to happen everywhere else, then my next thought is like, are they planning another pandemic at some point? It wouldn't surprise me if they did, you know, because it's becoming very clear that a lot of the places in the West, for instance, California, like the COVID emergency is over, but now there's a homeless emergency, which enables Gavin Newsom to continue to govern using emergency powers, right? Like, they seem to want to create perpetual states of emergency so that they can disregard certain laws and institutions, and they create a certain environment. So, I mean, I'm looking at what the BC Provincial Medical Board has been doing, and I'm like thinking, like, are they planning another pandemic at some point? And they're basically trying to get the doctors to toe the line, because that's effectively what's going. That looks like it is what's going on here, because it's sort of like, yeah, if there is another quote unquote faux pandemic like there was with COVID, you know, and there is a readily available cheap cure like ivermectin available, but Big Pharma wants you to use their expensive and potentially fatal product, aka remdesivir, or a version of it, or force you to take vaccines in order to keep your job, right? Doctors that willingly choose to go against that are going to find themselves in the potentiality of losing their license. Just very similar to how the Ontario Board of Psychologists were attempting to go after Jordan Peterson's license. And I think they might still be going after Peterson's license. Anyway, I'm going to turn it back over to Rearson. So, Taya, let's hear your say on this.
When did they do this?
Last week.
Really?
Or last week or the week before, one or the other. It was very recent.
Okay. Would it have been around Friday? Or say maybe Thursday?
I think it was later on in the week or the middle of the week. I don't know the specific date.
Okay. The only reason why I'm asking is that there's a BC doctor who's basically looking at suing former doctor facing discipline for allegedly spreading COVID-19 misinformation is suing BC Supreme Court, alleging his children are victims of experimental medical treatments. And I remember this guy, Daniel Yoshio Nagase. His name in the Supreme Court and Master Grant Taylor's defendants. So I wonder if I can't help but think of the likelihood that this lawsuit made the BC Medical Board put this into words, or basically push this through, because he's looking at suing the defendants for a total of $33 million. The former doctor claims his children could face myocarditis, thrombosis, cancer, and sterility, which is something that I have some concerns about with my son as well. Not so much the wife, but my son for sure. So, Yeah, that's all I got. That's all I just have to openly just wonder about how the timing of this court case to the Provincial Health Board. This can't be coincidental. Anyway, and that's about all I'm going to say.
That's good because we need to keep moving. Oh, look at this, your favorite topic, the one you wanted to do so badly.
Cunt.
Oh, my God. Oh, that's disrespectful to cunts everywhere.
Well, okay, a cunt's useful. Oh, and speaking
Depends
of
on what
useless,
you're using them for. Anyway, so oh my God, I'm just trying to formulate the proper way to even describe this. Kathleen, there's no Kathleen Kennedy has got to know, or if she doesn't know, or she's completely delusional, the people around her have got to know what is going on with Star Wars, which is why they keep delaying everything with Star Wars and keep coming out with crappy TV series that just don't go anywhere. And they basically do the same thing that they're doing with The Little Mermaid right now, is they keep trying to play the racism and misogyny card, and it's beginning to lose its impact, right? Because, like when Jada Pinkett Smith accuses her show on tanking on white supremacy, when in fact she pissed off the Egyptian government, which is an African country and a non-white majority country to boot,
minor
to pound
details.
Sand.
Minor, dude, literally.
And it's like, and they try pulling the white supremacy card there. Like that has got to be one of the, it's again, right? You're seeing this with Kathleen Kennedy, she literally apparently has done the same thing to Indiana Jones that she did with Han Solo and Luke Skywalker in Star Wars, right? Maybe she doesn't kill them off, but she intentionally emasculates. But again, apparently Harrison Ford gets intentionally emasculated. His stepdaughter is she's going to end up being the central part of the story, and she's going to end up becoming there won't be an heir apparent because of the show is probably going to tank, right? Harrison Ford got a standing ovation, but the show goes on. Apparently the movie goes on too long. Harrison Ford is emasculated a few times, and of course his female sidekick is, again, this as in typical Kathleen Kennedy fashion, a screechy, whiny feminist, right? And not a particularly likable character. So they put in, I don't know how much money they put into the budget for the recent Indiana Jones. I'm going to actually take a look at that. But apparently, oh no, that's right. The budget for Indiana Jones is something between $3 and $350 million.
It's about $350 million, and the numbers I've heard for marketing was about $100 million.
Okay, well, they spent more than $100 million to market. So basically, this movie has to basically break close to $1 billion in order to be profitable. Anywhere between 850 and $1 billion and 900. It doesn't start becoming remotely profitable until around the $800 million mark in sales, which it probably isn't going to get because, again, right, as we have just seen with what happened with Miller and Levi's, Heckler and Koch, Target, Ford, North Face, the NHL, the LA Dodgers, and the list is going to get bigger as we go along, right? The mainstream media, even a lot of the even a lot of the establishment mainstream media places weren't particularly flattering towards this Indiana Jones movie. Well, Harrison Ford was 78 when he made this movie. He's 80 now, so he's well past his prime at this point. And but I mean, I think we have to go and we got to take a look at Kathleen Kennedy, right? At this point, knowing what Kathleen Kennedy has done to the Star Wars franchise, you could only conclude one of two or three things. And again, I said this earlier. She is either completely delusional, like to the point where she shouldn't be in charge of a multi-million-dollar operation. She is completely delusional. She's doing this on purpose or is being ordered to do this on purpose. Disney is giving her directions. This is what I was saying as part of part two. Disney is giving her directions to do this because the level of incompetency at Disney, to give you an idea of what's happened with Disney, the Star Wars hotel that Disney was running in California, they're shutting that down, I think, at the end of July. Now, that Star Wars hotel might have actually been able to make a go of it, but Kathleen Kennedy insisted that the hotel base the characters on the hotel on the new movie series as opposed to the original trilogy. Yeah, again, right? Completely delusional or doing it on purpose, right? And again, like the Star Wars movies started getting so bad that look what she did. Like, I mean, again, the Solo movie. There's a book written by Del Rey. Actually, it was a trilogy written by Del Rey called The Solo Files or the Solo Trilogy. It was basically all of the stuff that Han Solo went through right up to the point where he met Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi. She could have taken those books and made a movie about them. Instead, what she tried to do is she tried to rewrite history and tried to have Lando Calrissian have a sexual affair with a transgender fucking robot. And the movie didn't do well because, once again, she had to absolutely emasculate Han Solo and have his ex-girlfriend rescue him. She seems to love doing this, which again falls into like she's either doing this on purpose or she is just completely delusional and lives off in her own bubble. And the people that she has around her are complete sycophants. And some of them probably damn well know what's going on and are just around Kathleen Kennedy because of the paycheck, right? But won't say anything because their money depends on Kathleen Kennedy being there. Right? So nobody is saying anything. And as a result, the like Indiana Jones is probably going to be yet another in a long series of movies this year that have lost hundreds of millions of dollars. That's how it's looking. Now keep in mind, I could be wrong. Right? It might actually be better than advertised. And yeah, I probably will have to go see it because that's just basically who I am. I will pretty much go see anything in a movie theater. So, I mean, I probably will go see it. Bottom line here is that, I mean, I don't. There's gonna be something. They're either gonna completely kill Lucasfilm, or Disney is probably gonna have to sell off Lucasfilm to someone else to save it, to make their money back, because the most obvious thing to do would be to fire Kathleen Kennedy and fire most of the which is basically the same thing. Well, here's the thing, right? Even if they fire Kathleen Kennedy, she's been running the show for so long now that all of her hires are in the company. So you basically would have to do the same thing with Lucasfilm that Elon Musk was doing with Twitter, right? And even then, right, Elon, as we've recently found out, Elon Musk had to kind of like backstep a little bit and hire on a Soros puppet to a certain degree, because in order for him to move to and this is just my personal opinion, I don't think Elon is as stupid as this. He might be playing 4D chess here in regards to that recent hire, right? So even if you got rid of Kathleen Kennedy, you'd still have to go through and you'd have to like systematically remove most of Kathleen Kennedy's hires from Lucasfilm in order to guarantee a profit. And even then, you know, knowing the way movies are set up in Hollywood, it would still take 2 to 3 years of revising scripts, moving stuff around, moving production dates around, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, if Kathleen Kennedy were to get fired tomorrow, it would probably be 2025, 2026 before you would notice a significant improvement in Lucasfilm. And you keep asking yourself why Disney insists on keeping her on when it's very clear that she's costing them billions of dollars with bad business decisions, right? The other possibility here is that she's got some potential blackmail on these people, which I don't think Kathleen Kennedy is that smart. So, you know, she's either a puppet for somebody, she's doing this on purpose because of her own ego, or she's in a deluded bubble and she's completely oblivious to logic. One of the three. That's all I got to say on it. I don't have a lot of hope for Indiana Jones at this point. And oh, by the way, there's still one more product they haven't ruined yet, but I fully expect they will. And that would be the Tomb Raider series. So expect Lizzo as the next Tomb Raider. And with that, I'm going to turn over to music.
Well, you know, fat people are terribly underrepresented in hero films.
Well, I mean, Lizzo runs up the steps to fight somebody, and she would pass out from breath before she got to the top of the stairs.
As we said earlier, stop. Where's my breathalyzer? Where's my puffer? Oh. Can I get my breath mask? Can I get the oxygen mask, please? That's better. Or I'll say stop again, you know. Please. So, I think... I've been listening recently enough, not listened to a lot of Mike Zero on YouTube, but also WDW, I think it is, and then also DVD Overlord, I think is the other gentleman's name. But the speculation actually is that Kennedy seems to have some sort of clout that she could... Oh, here's a couple of things. This is so fucked up. This woman must have enough clout overall that it's apparently kind of a little known secret, I guess is the best way to say it, that she's in the process of creating her own company that will, get this, rival that of Star Wars. And apparently Disney's well aware of it. Now, Disney is also the problem because Eisner wanted to reinvent the wheel, or as you said, to rewrite history. Apparently he's only backing down from this whole thing because of the financial flops, the fan backlash, like everything that they want, they're not getting from people like me because I'm paying them no mind. I will be happy to subscribe for Disney Plus with those pedophiles when it's something good. And then when the novelty is done, when season 1 of Mandalorian are finished, I cancel my subscription.
Speaking of Disney,
Yep.
I saw this today. They recently arrested 4 more pedophiles at Disney World in Florida last week.
Yeah,
Shocker, huh?
Well, they're not getting enough of them. That's all I'm going to say, and I make no apologies by saying that. But Disney is yeah. Anyway, Lucas was smart in a sense to sell Star Wars off to Disney. I don't like it. Okay, do not get me wrong. I do not like it. But it is what it is, or it was what it was. Can't go back and change time, although I wish we could. I'm sure he would as well. But part of the thing, though, was that there was a short clip on a YouTube short, and Lucas is sitting with Kennedy, and he basically said, Star Wars is, one, it's the relationship between a son and a father. Hint, hint, you're not going to fucking get it. But Star Wars is also about when you let other people get too much control and you have to fight back and take it from them. And that's basically it. I mean, it's not like we're dealing with that now. But Kennedy just doesn't get it. She's not creative. Like, she is not that fucking creative. I put her creative writing skills to be about as deep as the acting ability of Nicolas Cage, by and large. Not there. Almost as bad as Mark Hamill. But, I mean, shit, I'm actually on the side of Mark Hamill on this one. You can believe that. And I know that the Indiana Jones movie ends with the stepdaughter, basically the female character, taking over, and I'm just like, you know what? Fuck this. They did the same thing with Thor, with the Valkyrie taking over. And got to thank TK, whatever the hell his name was, for emasculating Thor, because he did a damn good job. And I know that I can't remember his name, the guy that played the actor for the actor who played Thor. He said, "I'll go back."
Chris Hemsworth.
Hemsworth has said, I will play, I will act, I will be happy to go in another Thor movie, but not this crap. And now that Marvel has got rid of its executive, that was a Kennedy clone in essence. Maybe it'll happen. They'll probably have to do it at some point because that's what the fans are going to want. Now, I have heard rumors that Lucas is back. He's going to be in charge of the creative department, or the story writing department of Lucasfilm. And Jon Favreau, I don't know, but he apparently is going to be taking over, and I won't be, if the rumors are true, I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if there was going to be a massive shift in there'd be a massive shift in fixing what's already been done. The tinkering that Disney has done to force this through with being profitable, but again, BlackRock, among other things, I'm not going to say, leads me to believe that this has been one of the biggest attempts in the cultural war for domination or supremacy. And again, at the end of the day, Iger has to stop the stupidity because it's costing him way too much. And there's apparently now as well too, Disney's problems, oh my God, it's only beginning right now. There's apparently, they're looking at a shift in, Disney has, I think I said this before, but Disney has basically committed fraud in terms of bonds or raising cash for bonds. And it's something to the effect of they've been evading taxes for like 30 plus years. So if the Florida government basically goes, hey, you owe us a lot of money, pay it back as soon as fucking possible, it's only going to make things even worse. So Disney has cut back a lot on, is cutting back enough content on Disney Plus, which apparently doesn't doesn't sell very well. But that's going to give them like $100 million tax credit on their corporate taxes. So the Disney situation is no different with what's going on with the Lucasfilm, and it's a mess, and it's just people that are there should not be there. So my feeling will be, and again, they don't get this. You need someone like me to go to the movie, and I have to be driven to go back and see the movie again. That's where you get your money. You need the action figures. You need, God, I've still got somewhere the Lego Indiana Jones series, or I can't remember which one it was. Raiders of the Lost Ark, that's what it was. I had never finished the game, but I bought it, and it was fun. It was actually comical. But this is where they have to have people to want to buy the franchise outside of the theater. And they're not going to do it. And I don't know about you, but I haven't seen any. Sorry, not that I'm active on TV or in the media anymore, but Norky, have you... Excuse me. Have you heard or seen anybody talk about the Raiders, the latest Indiana Jones movie?
No.
It's been-
They've got the stuff on. They got the usual based critics being very critical of it. One of my personal favorites, although the guy's got a severe drinking problem, is the Critical Drinker.
Yeah. They've been brutal, absolutely vicious. But
Nerdrotic has been particularly well, not too the Critical Drinker has been absolutely vicious, but it's like, again, right? I mean, she's got a track record. They knew, like, there's no way that a couple people at Disney didn't know what was going to happen if they allowed Kathleen Kennedy to do another Indiana Jones movie, and they just went right ahead and allowed her to do it, even though they knew what was going to happen.
Yep.
and they just went along with doing it anyway. And that there's don't it's a form of insanity. It's just doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again until and expecting a different result. And it's like, and every once in a while, you do get a different result. You do get a Captain Marvel in there, although I'm still going to maintain that the porno was actually more entertaining than the actual movie itself.
Yep.
And the woman in it was a lot more physically attractive as well.
Probably with the Jello molds, but we'll leave that alone.
Well, she's I mean, Brie Larson's got Jello molds too. Brie Larson actually does have she doesn't have much of a rear end, but I mean, she's definitely got a nice rack now. You won't get any argument from me there. But I mean, every once in a while, you'll get one that does, or you'll get one where they could have potentially, like, for instance, Ocean's 8 or Shang-Chi. Ocean's 8 was not that bad. There was a couple of hard feminist cells in it.
Yeah.
But what they did is that the same thing happened with Shang-Chi, right? They went out and insulted their audience. And they insulted their audience just enough that it turned the movie from a guaranteed profit into a break-even franchise, right?
Yeah.
And it killed it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing here. I mean, yeah, and of course, right, they will also point out the fact that, yes, the Star Wars movies, with the exception of Solo, all made money.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That was on nostalgia, right? I'm going to say this till the day I die, and hopefully, if Disney ever lets go of the Star Wars franchise, you will see it. They should have just paid Timothy Zahn a couple of $1 million to shut up, and did the Thrawn trilogy. Okay, yes, some people weren't big fans of the Thrawn trilogy, but it makes a whole hell of a lot more sense than what as opposed to the garbage that Kathleen Kennedy threw out.
Well, I still maintain that the Dave Filoni, the first Dave Filoni movie, and I already know that the Thrawn trilogy is where they're going. It's going to be overhauled, but again, they have that space-time altering reality called the world between worlds, and I knew what was going to happen is that was their way to basically, it was a case of subtle civil war with Filoni and against Kennedy, and he immediately undermined everything that she did and tinkered with.
Well, you got to understand too. Favreau is a young Soros guy.
Yes,
I hate to break it to you, man. That was painful,
no.
But
yeah, okay, no, you've already told me, and I've been trying to look it up a little bit here and there. I haven't found anything for it, but I haven't looked too hard either. But Favreau, from what I understand, he's very much in touch with what the fans want, because he knows at the end of the day it's his paycheck and his future depends on keeping us happy.
Go ahead. I'll let you finish, and then I'll say what I'm going to say.
Now, you didn't watch the Book of Boba Fett, did you?
No, I didn't. I say that proudly.
I watched it. Looking back at the whole train wreck that's been happening, had I known what this was all about, I would not have watched it, because Boba Fett couldn't fucking think his way out of wet paper bag. He didn't have his Asian female sidekick with him.
That is just totally disrespectful to Boba Fett.
Oh, exactly. The final battle in the town, the two sharpshooters, they happen to be female. So, not to say that they can't shoot, not to say that they would be good, but women's brains are not typically designed for that kind of activity. Again, not to say that they can't be done, not to say that female biathlon athletes don't exist, but it was just one of those, oh, look at that. Whose fingerprints are on this one, or fucking cunt prints are on this one? Kennedy. Same thing. The same thing with the Kenobi 6-part series. Fuck me, it was awful. Just absolutely awful. But this is what happens when you have a cunt-centric company changing history as the twats see fit. So, I hope the woman loses her job sooner rather than later. I've heard she has no input at all with The Mandalorian or anything that Favreau and Filoni are doing. So, and while it's almost a case, I think, of almost too little too late, but it's a fuck of a lot better to Star Wars isn't dead yet. It's getting close, but it hasn't died completely. There is a heartbeat. It's just a little bit on the weak side right now. And
yeah, wait till the new movie comes out. I've also got to point out, man. I mean, it's getting so bad with Star Wars that you're starting to look at someone like Filoni and going, like, you just seem to be going along with this, right? Like, I mean,
at the end of the day, there's only so much that he can do when you've got your boss riding your ass or ready to peg you up the ass. So
well, here's the thing. I mean,
yep.
The Warhammer, they're gonna be. Okay, yeah. Granted, Amazon is calling the shots over there, right? So you have no idea what's going to happen when they get rolling on Warhammer.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, Warhammer, the way the lore in Warhammer is designed, if you go PC with Warhammer, right, like, you will lose 90% of your audience like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like Warhammer is like you damn well stick to the lore, and it's grim, dark, it's ugly, it's not particularly politically correct.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to stick to it with Warhammer, because if you don't and you try to fucking quote unquote Disney-fy Warhammer the way you did with Star Wars, I mean, the audience will walk. I'm looking forward to it. I'm wondering what they're going to pick for Warhammer to go first. I suspect they're probably going to go with the Horus Heresy. That would probably be my guess.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, no, the Horus Heresy, everything in Warhammer around the lore is based around the Horus Heresy, right? But I mean, yeah, you cannot Disney-fy Warhammer, right? It's like, and if Filoni were to get fired from Lucasfilm, right, like, Amazon Prime would pick him up to go work on Warhammer in a cold second.
Not doubting that. I don't see it actually happening. Not because I wouldn't like to, but I just don't. No idea of what Filoni's interest in Warhammer, if there is any at all, if that would work or not.
Well, again, right, I'm just saying, Filoni has got some bargaining room here, right? Because I mean, you cannot PC Warhammer. If you try to, there's been people that have been trying with Warhammer for a few years now to try to PC Warhammer, and I mean, Warhammer's made a few concessions, like they brought in the Adeptus Sororitas, and they've tried to bring in a few more, but they're very limited in what they can do, because the female characters that they brought into Warhammer have to fit into the context of the universe in which, like, you're not as familiar with Warhammer as I am, I take it.
No.
Oh, you grimdark, like really grimdark is what Warhammer is like. So they get to bring in female characters. They have to fit within the context of the Warhammer setting, right? Like, you can't have, like, like Luke Skywalker would not be Luke Skywalker would be a completely different character if it was a Warhammer setting. Like it would be like the Jedi Knights would in no way resemble what they resemble in the Star Wars universe if it was a Warhammer setting. Same thing with the lore is too well developed and too many people know too much about the lore in Warhammer for them to take those kinds of stupid chances. Now, and if they do, the Warhammer series is going to tank like a lead balloon, right? And again, right, if Filoni's in a position to put his foot down to a certain degree, and if they threaten to fire him, it's like, yeah, you know what, Amazon would pick him up to work on Warhammer in like a cold goddamn second.
Well, the implication, if he was to walk, and you can kiss the Star Wars franchise goodbye because there's no one that's got the name Favreau. Potentially. But if Filoni was to walk, I assure you, I would not be watching any of that shit. I wouldn't follow it anymore.
Anyway, well, I wish Filoni all the luck, but I mean, at some point, I mean, how much of, like, you know, like Filoni is going to, if Kathleen Kennedy persists, like, I mean, in doing to Star Wars and to Lucasfilm what she's been doing to Lucasfilm, she's going to absolutely crater Lucasfilm completely to the point where Disney would have to sell it off.
Yeah.
Or let it die completely.
What if that's what she wants to do?
It's not her call to make, though. She's just
no.
It's Disney. Disney owns Lucasfilm.
Yes,
Kathleen Kennedy just runs it, right?
Yeah, but what if it's her intention to basically? Well, we cannot dismiss the likelihood that, well, one, she hates George Lucas and everything that he was. I don't know what he was like to work for. I imagine he was he would have been very demanding because it was his creation. But again, as I said, apparently she wants to create her own company that will rival that of Star Wars.
I mean, good luck with that because she's gotten zero creative talent, and any creative talent that she might have won't stick around in an environment where she's got a bunch of sycophants around her that won't tell her the truth of what's going on.
Yeah. Anyway, well, this tragic opera is not quite done yet, but I think it's coming to a close on the dark chapter of it all. So I'm hopeful.
Well, I mean, it's like, she's going to destroy Tomb Raider. It's the only product they've got left that she hasn't touched. Right? I mean, it's like, yeah, what's she going to do? Fucking bring Lizzo in as the fucking new Tomb Raider? Because
don't tempt her.
You know, as it's like, she seems like, based upon her decision so far, she seems to be that delusional. And with that, let's get on to the last topic.
Yes, let's.
Okay, so the last topic, and this one is, I'm finding this one rather interesting, because we all knew that this was, we all knew that this was going to be a lie, that the Steele dossier was fabricated, that the whole Russia P thing had been fabricated, and like that so much of that whole story was fabricated. Well, Ralph Durham, who's about as impartial as you're going to get in DC, took a look at it and did a full deep dive into it. And guess what? Trump is exonerated.
Well, that'll piss my father off, but whatever.
Sorry, pardon the language here, but fuck your dad.
Don't worry, I won't. Oh, believe me, I've given up on the man a long time ago. Politically.
Oh no, it's time at this point. I mean, if you're going to get off on this, I mean, there's like, I mean, given this, like, and we were discussing this very recently about the manosphere, and we're kind of getting off. Okay, I'll just get into it, and we'll get into this whole thing. All right, Durham did the investigation. Trump was never in the hotel room that Barack Obama was in. He did not have women piss on him, nor did they have them piss on the sofa. He actually went over to Moscow and investigated this. He took a deep look at the Steele dossier, which was it looks like it was completely fabricated. Turns out the Clintons were lying. Turns out that the story that Donald Trump was saying about a lot of his places being wiretapped, and those wiretaps being used to get subpoenas to conduct the illegal activities at the behest of the FBI and the Justice Department. So like the whole thing was just a complete fraud and sham.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The good news about that is that because of what Durham did, I think this pretty much puts the nail in the coffin for Hillary Clinton ever making another run at the presidency. You know, because there's like zero, like, I mean, she's going to have to, like, I mean, and it's not like it was back in 2020. Like, Facebook and YouTube can run block all they want, but Elon Musk won't.
Yeah.
So, and it's like, and the ultimate, and because of what's, and again, all you got to do is look at what's happening with Target and Heckler and Koch and Miller and all of these companies now, and the fact that the mainstream media cannot run block for them. They don't control enough of the narrative now. Just like, you know, I mean, if you watch the mainstream media, for instance, you would think that the Ukrainians are doing fine in this conflict with the Russians. And in fact, I mean, when you start looking at the alt media, it's like, I mean, the Russians are not dragging men off the street to go fight the war in Russia, and Ukraine is. And if you're at that point where you're having to basically drag men off the street to fight in your army, because
You've
I mean,
lost. Yep.
you pretty much have lost the war at that point, because it's like, you know, it's like, I mean, guys that are drafted into armed forces that way are not going to be your highest caliber soldiers.
Nope. And if they have a chance to run or surrender, they will.
You know, they're going to require constant monitoring, and it's like it's going to actually take more resources just to keep an eye on these soldiers as it is to get them to fight, right? To train them up to fight, right?
Mm-hmm.
Assuming, of course, that some of them don't just flee from the training camp, which they're also going to have to build barriers around to prevent the people that they forced into the army. It's just a whole mess, right? So if Clinton tries to make a run, she's going to have to explain this. So I mean, if there is an extra good that's been, it's like, I mean, you know me, I'm not diehard on anybody, right? So I'm not diehard on Trump, but I mean, the good thing about this report is that if Clinton tries to make another presidential run, like, she's gonna have to explain the Durham report, right?
Yeah.
Like, this has effectively killed any chance that she has of being president at this point. And, you know, the whole, like, yeah, it was just, it's the whole thing was just absolutely just a complete discredit of the Clintons, and almost a complete exoneration of Trump, you know. And it's like, they just don't want to seem to, like people like your dad just don't seem to want to fucking get over 2016.
No, I don't see that ever happening with him.
You know, and again, and that just brings me all the way back, though, to the point that I was going to make at the start of this, but I felt I needed to cover the story before I got into this.
Mm-hmm.
The whole thing that's going on with Bud Light, and the fact that they're not controlling the narrative. Like they don't control enough soft power anymore, that they're losing the culture war on the press side, because it's like the press just keeps lying and lying and lying, and every time they lie, they lose a little bit more of their legitimacy, right? And what's gone on, what I'm starting to see, for instance, in the manosphere now, is you're starting to see guys in the manosphere are like going, like when some guy gets victimized by his fucking ex, it's like they're like looking at him going like, how the fuck did he not know this? Right? Like the information is out there. You don't have to go online to find it anymore, right? Like it's publicly, like, I mean,
It's publicly available. Yeah.
well, I mean, you know me. I'm part of your circle, but I'm in the manosphere. But if you take a look at some of your other friends and you ask them, if they know somebody else in the manosphere, or somebody that's tied in with the alt community, I'm going to bet that if you start asking some of these guys, some of them around, dollars to donuts, statistically, there's probably at least one other guy that's in the community with me that you probably don't know about, maybe even 2 or 3. And that's the situation with every guy. It's reached the point now where information for men about how to deal with women and the manosphere information, it's not just online, it's out in the public. And I know this because when I talk to other guys about it, they are much more aware of it now than they were. And so, by the way, are women, because the women are screeching even louder about the manosphere. And here's the thing, right? It's a self-defeating cycle for them, because, the screeching only works if the guy's unaware that that's what they're trying to do, right? And the manosphere is like going, well, if they're doing this,
You do this, yeah.
You do this, that's what they're trying to do. And it's like, so the autistic screeching of the blue-haired feminists and of the women who don't approve of the manosphere doesn't work any longer. And if they try posting it up, if they stray out of their safe spaces and out into public, they need Big Daddy or Big Brother to run block for them, because if they don't have that, they get absolutely massacred. Like if you see a feminist posting up, and this is what you see, a feminist posting up and taking shots at the manosphere on Twitter, right? Like there's automatically guys in there that are like correcting her and attempting to fucking like address her, and it's like, and of course they fall back, oh well, you're just butthurt. It's like, no, you're not butthurt.
It's more that, yeah.
It's like you're choosing to be stupid and ignorant, and you're displaying and you're putting it up on display. And because you're putting it up on display, I'm going to tell you that you're being a fucking idiot. And this is the same thing with the individuals around Trump and around, like, the information, just like, again, same thing with Andrew Tate, but the information about what happened on J6 is a matter of public record. The individuals who stick to the narrative, and I know because I've had to deal with them, have had to engage in knowing and willful twisting of the facts to make their narrative stick. Same thing with this. Like somebody who is still holding on to this TDS after all this time.
Yeah.
The information is out there, and they are choosing not to check it out. They are choosing to be willfully ignorant. And if they are choosing to be willfully ignorant, this is another thing I saw on Facebook the other day. If you lost a friend during COVID because of your stance on COVID, and you got back and became friends with them again after the fact, just remember where that person came from and why they did it, and it's very likely that they will do it to you again.
Yeah, sounds like someone I know.
So it's like, the whole thing around Trump is that there's no point even arguing about Trump anymore, because the people who are who have TDS now and still have TDS,
yeah,
are choosing of their own free will to remain that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like they are choosing to not look at the facts, right? And when you start taking, and I mean, again, I'm going to say this one more time.
Sounds like someone we know.
I mean, I understand that I might sound like a diehard Trump guy at this point. I'm not. I'm fully aware of the fact that he had a very shady reputation for ripping off contractors when he was doing his businesses in New York City. I am fully aware of some of the tax breaks he gave to the ultra rich. There are some very, very suspicious connections with Epstein that haven't been fully fleshed out. Although, again, at least he didn't fly to Epstein's island.
Mm-hmm.
There, and keep in mind that people at this level all kind of know each other anyway, because there's not that many of them. There's also how he handled the vaccine stuff. Again, though he may have been getting faulty information, but it's like, yeah, no, there's enough. There's especially on the financial end with some of the businesses he was operating, right? Like there's enough stuff there without having to make stuff up, which they have. Like, I mean, this is the part that really gets me. Like, there's enough other stuff out there that they could have gone after Trump over if they had chosen to, and they didn't. They started making shit up, right? And it's like, yeah, you're at that point where it's sort of like, okay, you know what? I mean, anybody who's choosing to have Trump derangement syndrome at this point is choosing to do so willingly. And it's just like the same sort of thing that is going on with the other topic that I was talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, so yeah, the Durham report exonerates Trump, but it's not going to matter except to people who are in the middle and people who are diehard Trump supporters, or people that are on the left that are not ideologically driven. I mean, the people with TDS are going to stay having TDS until something seriously goes wrong, assuming they even survive it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rusin to take this show out.
I have been waiting for this to come through. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if this was ready to be released 3 years ago, even 4 years ago. But when it comes to the environment called politics and optics being very important, as is said within the non-community, this had to be released at the right time. Because right now, Americans, at the very least Americans, if not the rest of the world, or anyone that's paying attention to this, for someone such as myself, and I'll put you in this category as well too, Naruki, for anybody that has half a brain and to think and to realize that, holy fuck, the level of corruption I'm pretty sure if you were to talk about government corruption to most Canadians, they'll say, well, yeah, I expected, there's going to be corruption at the City Hall or the municipalities or in the provincial capitals, and certainly at the federal level. But what can you do? I know that there were a couple of court cases where Durham lost the case, but he lost to get information to be brought out and for it to be talked about. So it was strategic losses, I guess would be the best way to say it. And Now, well, I mean, you can't really watch American politics in particular. Sorry, let me rephrase that. You cannot not be aware of the level of corruption within American politics, the three-letter agencies, the swamp, and then the mini swamps, and then even the smaller swamps, to go from federal to state to county level, I guess is what they call them, or as I would say, municipal. If the Durham report was to be released 3 or 4 years earlier, when Trump was still in office, or would have been released during the time of 2020, it would have come across as being that Trump, there was interference from the Trump administration. So this had to be delayed. It had to be delayed no matter how much people would have liked it to be done so otherwise. So things have to be done in a certain order as the public has to be woken up, has to become woken up. I'm not saying to be woke, go broke, but the public has to wake up to what's going on. And it's kind of like the boiled frog scenario. Only the frog is the evil of the world. Excuse me, my apologies for yawning here. I didn't think it was that tired.
Oh yeah, I'm getting pretty tired too, but continue.
Yeah. So much like your boiled frog, you have to take your time so that the frog doesn't jump out of the water. Actually, in a sense, this is what has to be done with the fake news. With everything else that's going on, is that the people that are pulling the strings in the background, that are maintaining this lie that's being held over all of us. If you make too many changes too quick, they're going to jump out of the pot and things are going to change and it's going to get worse. So things have to be done slowly, incrementally, and it's been very testing on my patience, and I know I'm not the only one within the truther community overall. But things have to be done slowly and methodically to where things sink in. So, my opinion, and I'll disagree with Kelso in this one. We see he's called this hopium. It's like, well, the hopium of being within the QAnon community, it's like, well, that's all that we have right now. And once things start to break down at a much higher level, then it gives everybody else that's been waiting to jump, like you were talking before about, it's when the lions, not necessarily when the lions wake up, it's when the lions are ready to attack. Or something to that effect you said before to me, Naruki. So this is one of those times that it's the energy buildup is going to be finally released for fixing things and the like. So I know what I want to say, I just can't get it out right now, and my apologies for that. So I'm going to leave it at that. It took a while, but this is well worth the wait. There we go. That's good enough for me. And that's it.
All right, that concludes the show for tonight. Yeah, just giving you a heads up. There's going to be more wokeism, and there's going to be an extremely heavy-duty Canada content for 312. I am on my last legs mentally right now as well. I'm just gonna go finish having some of those chicken wings that I bought before the start, and then I'm going to bed. Thank you very much for listening. Yeah, Steve, I'm just gonna eat and then I'm just going to go to bed here. So thank